Hi, friends. Welcome to Pearls from the Heart Ministries with me, your host, Sarah Janusa. In this episode, I'd like to focus on the abuse that has occurred in men, abuse that is so vile and such an assault on a young boy, a young man's life, that it takes a tremendous amount of respect when one of these men can come out of the shadows of despair and secrecy and hiding and be vulnerable enough to say that they were molested as a child or as a young adult. Today, I'd like to share some statistics with you, but keep in mind that these statistics are grossly underreported when it comes to specifically male sexual abuse and assault. 1 in 6 in the US have been reported before the age of 18 to be molested and abused as young boys. So, what does this do to a young man's life? What does this do to a young child that's developing into being a man? You see, our society views men to be courageous, views men to be invaluable and strong. And they are. They are courageous. Men are courageous. They are invaluable. They are strong. But when it comes to being a victim of something as dark and insidious as sexual abuse and assault or rape, the courage, their the value, and their strength becomes something that it was not intended to look like. Instead of having courage, strength, and adding such value to their loved ones and to themselves and to life, men start to internalize shame, and their courage turns into fear. Their strength becomes a projection of shame, fear, and guilt. If you can understand, it's like everything that God created a man to stand for becomes perverted because of the trauma, because of the shame that's internalizing year after year, the self-contempt. And we went over that in previous episodes, the ambivalence, just the internal conflict, and that internal harsh critic where a man no longer feels like he's adding value or he's being valued. A man no longer feels courageous and strong, but he feels worthless. He feels angry, rageful at times even. And instead of being vulnerable and allowing his love to be uninhibited and unhindered for his loved ones, those closest to him, his family, his friends, his wife, his children, a man begins to operate with a projection of a false self. And this false self is because of the wounded heart. Friends, I'd like to share a psalm with you. It's a declaration of faith. And I'd like to continue to share a little bit more on how important it is for you today as a victim, now survivor of sexual abuse. If you are listening and you are a man today that has had instances where you were assaulted, instances where you have been molested, instances where maybe you were raped over and over again, maybe you are now a victim and a survivor of human trafficking. I want you to hear this psalm, and I want you to know that what God sees is not what man sees. What God sees when he created a man, he created his image, and he loves you, and he delights in you. And I want to encourage you as a young man today, as a grown man today, as an older man, as an elder, that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that you are seen, that you are courageous, even years that it may not have seemed that way. And I am inviting you into the discovery of your true self, the self that is longing to come out instead of that hurt little wounded boy that tends to scream and rage at times inside of your heart, making you lonely, abandoned, and angry. Psalm 27 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Or whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may rise against me, in this I will be confident. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that I will seek, that I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret place of his tabernacle he shall hide me. He shall set me high upon a rock." And this goes on to say a few more scriptures, stanzas, but before I get to that, I want to ask you a question. Who do you say that you are? Whose do you say that you belong to? I want to read you something before we finish that psalm, and it's in my devotion. And I wrote this devotion, Pearls from the Heart, before I wrote The Molester's Hand. And so I believe that Pearls from the Heart is part one of my journey, and The Molester's Hand is part two of my journey in writing about these times in my life that have been so tumultuous, that have been very complicated, complex, where my wounded heart was in the process of not only becoming fully aware of the extent of my abuse, but facing it, discovering all of it, which there was some suppression of most of it, but also journeying out of it with courage, with faith, and determination to find out who I truly was, apart from the victim and into the victor, the victorious side, where God started to heal my heart. So in Pearls from the Heart, I have something that I wrote and I titled it, Who Am I? This is like a short devotional. It's a compilation of pondering thoughts that I wrote down in my journey. So I put, who am I, Jesus? Asked heart. Who am I, world? Asked heart. Who do you say that I am, friend? Asked heart. Who do you say I am, my family? Asked heart. Who are you, heart? Who are you? Whispered heart. Jesus, who do you say that I am? Once more asked heart. Jesus, who have you truly created me to be? Inquired heart. Am I a match in your eyes, Jesus? Asked heart. Is it the same to all those around me? Wondered heart. Heart remembered the issues of life. Heart, do I like you? Asked heart of itself. Heart, who is molding you? Asked heart. Have I done too much to make you who I desire you to be or think you should be? Heart asked of itself. Have I allowed too much of my hurts to deform me? Have I allowed too much of me in me? Heart thought and thought and thought. And then heart spoke, Jesus, here I am. Do with me as you please, and help me to remain pure before God and man, no matter what. Please, Jesus, let me live each day you give me in the way you created me to live it. I love you. Love, heart. And I have a page for reflection, but some of the questions that I wrote at the end is just to give space and give you a place to meditate on what this was really trying to get across and express. It's the discovery of your true self. It's when you enter the road of the unknown, when you are truly trying to download who you really are, apart from all of the hypervigilance, the anger, the self-preservation, the anxiety, the depression, the rage, the trust issues, the shame, the feelings of abandonment and worthlessness. It's a lot when you really start to walk that road of self-discovery. And it is so glorious when you discover your true self apart from the abuse you suffered. And I love when it says, have I allowed my hurts to deform me? Friends, I don't want you to spend another moment of your life stuck in a person that you created to protect your wounded heart, to protect that little boy at the age when he was assaulted, molested, masturbated, raped. I wrote in now my book, The Molester's Hand, pushing beyond the trap door. This is again towards the end of the book, chapter 15. While my mind was in a steady mode of protection overload, my emotions were undeniably stunted inside that 6-year-old little girl who was always trying to desperately protect me when I felt threatened. My father's twisted, coercive invitation to me was enough trauma to destroy my innermost being and my sense of safety and security for many, 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 many years. So let's go back to our psalm, shall we? It's a declaration of faith because that's what we need in this hour. We need faith, we need hope, and we need to trust again. So in this psalm, it says, "My head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Therefore, I will offer sacrifices of joy in his tabernacle. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not leave me nor forsake me. O God of my salvation, when my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a smooth path because of my enemies. Do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries. For false witnesses have risen up against me, and such as breathe out violence. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord." David in the Psalms is an absolutely perfect, exuberant, legendary example of a man after God's own heart. David is referred in the Bible as a man after God's own heart. David wasn't perfect. We know that. No one in the Bible was ever made to be perfect other than the Son. And David, we know, was a murderer. He committed adultery. But what did David do? He fasted, he wept, he mourned, and then he got up. And he was one of the greatest, most valiant warriors that we know in the Bible. David was in so many battles that he won because his strength, his faith, his trust, and his hope was not in himself. It was in God alone. And God was able to honor David's worship and David's faith mightily over and over again. Do you remember when David fought the giant Goliath? Do you have a giant in your life today? excuse me, the giant that comes to you to torment you, to lie to you, the giant of carrying a wound of sexual abuse around with you, of carrying that burden, that weight around, never fully being healed from, never really being dealt with in a healthy manner. It takes that courage that God sees you as, a courageous, valiant warrior man. It takes you knowing that you are valuable. It takes your strength, but your strength is found in God, not yourself. You're not alone. It takes all the attributes through God in order for you to truly grab hold of your identity, to grab hold of who you really are, to grab hold of your freedom. I love Braveheart. I love that movie because it shows so much courage against all odds. It shows a determination of a man's heart for freedom. Are you desperate today for freedom? Are you willing to fight for your freedom? Are you trusting that God is with you? Are you putting faith in God alone above your own self and your own strength? Friends, we are so finite beings. We are so limited, but God is infinite and He's limitless. And His love is like no other. His love is not a human love who has who has limits at times. We are encouraged to love unconditional, but we sometimes are not always to do that, right? That's something that we aspire for. And we can be really good at unconditional love, but there are times where we fail one another in that love, right? But God never fails you in His love, and it is perfect and it is unconditional. And so I want you to hear today that trust that you are not able to release to others that love you can be healed, and it can be renewed, and it can be restored. I want you to know that there's a key in what David did to win against that giant of Goliath, to win against the Philistines, to win against the Amalekites in the Bible. Do you remember the battles that David went through when he was fighting? Do you remember the battle in Samuel of Ziklag? It was such a courageous, awesome testament of God and His faithfulness to David, who worshiped, who endured, and who warred for freedom. And so I want to share with you that we do have some giants, right? There are emotional battles, spiritual battles, there are mental battles and physical battles that all of us go through in our journey, in our lives, just being human and living in a world where there's sin, right? But I want you to hear the courage and the refusal to deny God, the refusal that David carried to rely on himself, how he prioritized God changed the tide. It changed the trajectory for David, and he won fierce and ferocious, cruel battles. He won because he prioritized God. When he was just a shepherd boy chosen to fight against Goliath, How did he win? He tried to put on Saul's armor, right? But it was too heavy. He couldn't carry it. He didn't know what to do with that. But he put on what? A slingshot and smooth stones, because he was relying not on himself, but he was relying on God to take down that giant, that Philistine. And what did David do as a shepherd boy? When anything would threaten the sheep, he would go after it. And he killed a bear and he killed a lion. And then he trusted God and he killed the giant that everyone was so terrified of and afraid of. David looked like a shabby, ruddy little boy. But guess what? God showed up, right? And God defied the Philistine through David. This is a wonderful representation for you to hold on to when you feel like just a little weak, scared, hurt, violated little boy, and what God called you to do through him in your life, that you are not what you think you are, but you are a valiant warrior, a courageous one that can take down that giant of sexual abuse and molestation in your life, no matter what age and no matter how rampant and how many times you were victimized and abused in that sin against you. And I want to encourage you today that yes, our bodies do have a natural response to sexual sin, but that is not for you to harbor any guilt over, because you were set up. You were set up and groomed. And that is the tragedy of so many survivors and victims, is that there was a vulnerability that you may today may never want to be vulnerable again because of what happened to you at a young age and your vulnerability. So there is that vulnerability where you were victimized. You may have been a child that was never celebrated or seen, and that groomer, that perpetrator, came into your life and started to delight in you and give you that attention that you so desperately wanted. And even when it graduated into the first time you were touched and molested or raped or masturbated, that even though you knew it was wrong, it felt good to be delighted in, to be needed, to be seen, to be wanted. This is something that can cause so much self-contempt and ambivalence in you today. But I want you to hear that this is not your fault. David said in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 37, "The Lord delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, and he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And if you know the story, it's such an incredible story, because this was a towering giant over David. And when David came in to confront and to fight him, the giant actually laughed, and everyone was so terrified. But what did David do with his slingshot and smooth stones. He ran towards that giant and he confronted him and he wounded him and then he beheaded him with a sword. Friends, this is an invitation. Young men and men listening of all ages, this is an invitation for you to take down this Goliath in your mind, in your soul, that is robbing you, mocking you, laughing at you, humiliating you still today, causing you to respond, causing you to be triggered in ways that you wouldn't have been if this horrific sin would have not been a part of your life. This is not your fault. David said to the giant, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, who you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you." This is the roots of trauma, friends. This is the roots of trauma right now that we're dealing with, that we're discussing, that we're pondering with. You need to behead those roots. You need to pull up every root. The roots are deep. It's a journey. It's a journey. David's total reliance on God, his spiritual dependence, caused him to respond with bold action and victory. The Lord gave David many victories over many battles. And I want to close with this. It says, David strengthened himself, in the Lord. And he asked, when it came to that battle that I spoke of earlier of Ziklag, it's in 1 Samuel chapter 30, he asked God, I want you to ask God, are you ready? Shall you pursue that Goliath roaming around in circles in your heart today? David said, shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And God answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. And David went out with 400 mighty men. He pursued, and he won, and he overtook them, the Amalekites, and he recovered all that was stolen. William Wallace made a statement, and it's so very on point and encouraging to you, to me, to this specific topic of men and the battle that they must face, that you must face, that I must face as a woman against the horrific sin of sexual abuse and trauma. William Wallace said, every man dies. Not every man really lives. I want to encourage you as we close today to really live. You deserve to really live. I deserve to really live. And only a victim and a survivor can really relate to the depth of that statement. Because deep down inside, we want to live free from that wounded heart and all of the triggers and all of the self-preservation and all of the hurt that we cause others because of that wounded heart. Friends, join me as we continue to ponder and to share on such an awesome journey of defying all of the evil that came against our lives in such a vulnerable place, in such a vulnerable age, in such a vulnerable setting, and to take hold of that and set our feet flat-footed, trusting God to redeem the time, to restore the loss, and to heal our wounded hearts. I will see you next time. Be blessed, have courage, take heart, and continue on the pursuit to discover who you really are and allow others that love you so much to find out your authentic and genuine, glorious and beautiful, worthy self, the one that God created